You are standing in the Queen's lodgings of the Tower of London, May 17, 1536. 3 years ago, you dressed for a coronation in this same room, silk gowns, gold thread, London roaring your name through the stone. Now the door is bolted from the outside. On the English Channel, a French swordsman is crossing the water with a two-handed blade commissioned for one neck. Anne Boleyn has 48 hours. The sword is already moving. 6 hours into the countdown. Tower Hill. 5 men kneel on a scaffold in the open air. Mark Smeaton, court musician, 26 years old. Henry Norris, the King's groom of the stool. Francis Weston, 25. William Brereton, Welsh court official. George Boleyn, Viscount Rochford, Anne's brother. Convicted of incest with the Queen on testimony alone, Smeaton is the only one who confessed. That confession came out of Thomas Cromwell's private house in Stepney, almost certainly extracted on the rack. The other 4 deny every charge on the scaffold. If Tudor history this raw is what you came here for, subscribe. There's worse underneath. Each head falls. 1 cannon blast per execution. 5 blasts roll across the Thames before noon. Anne hears everyone from her window. 5 men dead by midday, May 17th, that same afternoon. Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, Henry's own appointee to Canterbury, rides to Lambeth Palace and signs the formal annulment of Anne's marriage to Henry, declaring the union void. Their daughter Elizabeth, 2 years old, asleep in a nursery at Hatfield House, 30 miles from London, is now legally illegitimate. The line of succession has been rewritten in a single afternoon. Kingston, the Tower's constable, a veteran soldier in his late 50s, writes to Cromwell that evening. Anne received the annulment in silence. She did not weep. She asked one question: where is the sword? She had arrived at this same tower 15 days earlier, arrested on May 2nd, brought by barge on the Thames. The 4 ladies assigned to attend her were Cromwell's informants. Every word she spoke was reported back to the man building the case against her. Her trial had concluded 2 days before the executions, May 15th, in the Great Hall of the Tower. 26 peers sat as jury, presided over by Thomas Howard, Duke of Norfolk, Anne's own uncle. The indictment charged high treason under the 1534 Treason Act, that, by taking lovers, she had conspired the king's death by endangering the succession. 2,000 spectators packed the hall. Anne stood alone and denied every charge. Every peer voted guilty. Norfolk pronounced the sentence himself: death by burning or beheading, at the king's pleasure. 5 men walked to a scaffold that morning so a king could eat supper with his next wife that evening. 42 hours remain. Scaffold on Tower Green is already being measured. Across London, in a private chamber at York Place, Henry VIII is pouring wine for Jane Seymour. Swordsmen travelled from Saint-Omer in the Pale of Calais. English held territory on the French coast. The crossing to Dover, then overland to London, took a minimum of 3 to 4 days. He arrived at the Tower on or before May 17th. Count backward. The summons left London no later than May 12th or 13th. Anne Boleyn's trial did not conclude until May 15th. The executioner was standing on English soil before the jury foreman opened his mouth. Thomas Cromwell, Henry's chief minister and the architect of every charge, had dispatched the kill order before the verdict existed. The indictment, drafted May 10th at Westminster, listed specific dates and locations of Anne's alleged adultery with each of the 5 men. Surviving royal household accounts and court itineraries prove she was at entirely different residencies on at least 4 of those dates. One charge placed Anne at Hampton Court on a date when court records confirm she was at Greenwich, recovering from a miscarriage suffered 3 months earlier. 30 hours remain. The verdict was written before the trial. The blade was ordered before the verdict. So what was Anne Boleyn actually guilty of? May 18th. Dawn. Anne dresses for death. Tower Green. The scaffold stands ready. Timber and straw. Crowds are gathered at the gates. Kingston receives a message from Cromwell. Postponed. 24 more hours. The crowd is sent home. Cromwell likely wanted a controlled audience. By the time the execution proceeds, the witnesses will number roughly 1,000, hand-picked, not the uncontrolled mob that gathered on Tower Hill. Anne does not collapse. She calls Kingston to her chamber. His letter to Cromwell records her next words nearly verbatim. "I here say I shall not die afore noon, and I am very sorry therefore, for I thought to be dead by this time and past my pain. Then, I heard say the executioner was very good, and I have a little neck." She puts both hands around her throat and laughs. The French blade is somewhere behind the tower walls. 18 hours remain. Henry spent the delay playing tennis. Here is what the trial never addressed. Cranmer's annulment, signed on May 17th, declared the marriage void ab initio. From the beginning, under canon law, Anne was never Henry's wife, but every charge against her, adultery, incest, treason, requires a valid marriage to exist. The Crown's own paperwork had just made its own prosecution logically impossible, and nobody stopped the sword Anne, her daughter Elizabeth's claim to the throne, the entire Boleyn faction at court. Cromwell needed all of it erased. The law had contradicted itself, and the blade kept moving. On the night of May 18th, Anne spends hours in prayer with her almoner, John Skip. She swears twice on the consecrated sacrament, once before and once after receiving communion, that she is innocent of every charge. In Tudor England, a false oath on the sacrament carries weight beyond any court. Eternal damnation. Kingston records it but offers no opinion on whether he believes her. On the night before her execution, the most powerful court in Europe had not arranged a coffin for the Queen it was about to kill. Kingston's final letter to Cromwell records what was provided instead: an elm arrow chest, a narrow box built for storing longbow shafts, brought to the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. 8 hours from now, the executioner from St. Omer will step onto Tower Green. The arrow chest is already inside the chapel. May 19th, 1536, 8 o'clock in the morning. Anne Boleyn walks from the Queen's lodging to the scaffold on Tower Green, flanked by 4 ladies in waiting, among them Mary Howard and Margaret Lee. She wears a dark grey damask gown trimmed with fur, ermine-lined mantle, and an English gable hood. Kingston walks beside her. He has locked her door every night for 17 days. Roughly 1,000 witnesses stand in the courtyard, far fewer than the crowd dismissed the day before. She climbs the scaffold steps. Her final speech praises Henry as a good, gentle and sovereign lord. Tudor protocol demanded this. A condemned prisoner who attacked the crown risked retaliation against their surviving family. Her daughter Elizabeth is alone now, and entirely at the king's mercy. She removes her gable hood. A lady in waiting hands her a linen coif. Anne tucks her hair inside, exposing the back of her neck. The French swordsman, Jean Rambaud, stands to her left. The sword from Calais is hidden beneath straw on the scaffold floor. Anne kneels upright. French-style execution uses no block. Her neck is exposed in open air. Rambaud calls to his assistant, "Bring me the sword." Anne turns her head toward the voice. The blade is already in his hands. One stroke, the sword from Calais fulfills its commission. In the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, a lady-in-waiting wraps the head in white linen and carries it to the elm arrow chest. Anne Boleyn's body was folded into the chest and buried beneath the altar. No funeral mass, no marker, no inscription. The following day, May 20th, 1536, Henry VIII formally betrothed Jane Seymour. 11 days later they married. Thomas Cromwell, the man who scheduled the sword from Calais before the trial even began, was himself arrested for treason 4 years later. He was beheaded on Tower Hill on July 28, 1540. The execution was botched. It took 3 strokes. The privy purse expenses of Henry VIII record the swordsman's fee: £23, 6 shillings and 8 pence to the executioner of Calais, roughly £13,000 in today's currency. The entry sits between a payment for the king's bowstrings and a charge for mending the royal tennis nets. In 1876, workers renovating the chapel under Queen Victoria Zure's orders opened the floor beneath the altar. They found the arrow chest, still intact after 3 centuries underground. Inside, a female skeleton, skull separated, vertebrae consistent with a single blade strike. Anne Boleyn was identified and marked with a memorial for the first time in 340 years. Her daughter Elizabeth, declared illegitimate the week Anne died, became Queen of England in 1558 and ruled for 45 years. She defeated the Spanish Armada and built a global empire. She never spoke her mother's name in public, not once. There was another woman locked in this same tower, decades later, whose imprisonment lasted not 17 days but 17 years, and she survived. If Anne Boleyn's last 48 hours disturbed you, the next chapter of this tower is worse.